Since there's been a great deal of emphasis placed upon nuclear proliferation and atomic waste being dumped, I thought I would talk about nuclear radiation and the ground zero fallout point. Well, I know you're all very excited about that. I could tell as the ripple of went through the group. Nevertheless, I think I'll talk about it in terms of my own inimitable presentation, which means watch for a trick. How much time do I have left? Do you know what my timekeeper said? As much as you want. No, I have to pace a very meager subject. There's not too much material in that to a lengthy period of time, so it sounds voluminous to you. And yet, when you walk away from here, you'll be able to sit down and do nothing about it. But feel like you can, which is where most people are right now anyway. But to talk about nuclear radiation, I first have to talk about the ground zero effect. Now, I know all of you are thinking, all meaning all of you, are thinking about, let's use the word sensing, that I might be going to talk about the atomic bomb and Pluton bombs and things like that. I'm not. I'm talking about spiritual things. I just decided I would use that subject matter to captivate your, what we call it, self-destructive interest and cataclysmic despair, and keep you on the edge of your seat in terms of wondering if I'm going to tell you we're going to have a war and if the world's going to be destroyed. Well, the answer to that is yes, we're going to have a war and the world is going to be destroyed. However, not tonight. So there's not too much to be concerned about. You can all sit back, rest for this period of time we're going to be together, and you have a guarantee that nothing's going to happen, neither here with me or with the planet. Most people feel trapped by the way that politics, governments are working with each other, seeming as though there's no way out of this dilemma that is confronting us. It's that we're a captive in the environment against bourgeois, how do you say it? Bourgeois. That's a new word. I don't use that very much. Politicians have you cornered, and they can do anything they want to you, against you, and not for you, but they do it for money. They seem to have commercialized your life. And everybody resents terribly being commercialized unless you're getting the money. Then you think that's a very good idea. So when one person wants money and another one says, I'm not giving it to you, but they get it anyway because they dump rubbish in your backyard, and then you have to pay to have it cleaned up, and it's their company that cleans it, they get the money one way or another. So we're up against this always feeling a captive. I want freedom. Well, that's nice to want something. It's like, I want a glass of water. Oh, I got a cup. Now, this brings up a very interesting hypothetical question. Is this a cup of water or a glass of water? It's glass. And then if this is glass, what they call the tall one that we call a glass? Well, I just thought I'd leave that with you. It'll probably be one of the profound things that go on through the ages. Of course, I've solved it. It's a glass cup, and the other one is a glass. I know that doesn't do much for you, but at least it's solved. The whole thing about what I'm doing is I'm demonstrating freedom. I don't care what you think. You're probably thinking, when's he going to get to something? I passed it. I'm on the other side. I'm moving right along here. I'm coming to ground point zero, which is what you're concerned about, whether it's going to bomb on top of you or around you. I know it's not too popular to think when a bomb blows off to throw up 3 feet of air above the top of you and hope it hits that before it hits you. I'm not sure that's going to work. I've got an idea that we should all carry a pole about 8 feet tall with a platform about 4 feet wide, and on top of that 3 feet of dirt, and have a little belt that comes along and put in and carry it like a flag. And then whenever the bomb goes off, you just turn and put yourself underneath that and let the bomb hit that, and you'll be okay. Now, if you believe that, I have some more things to tell you. The heat will come around you, and you'll be a toasted creature. Or a critter, depending how angry you got before you got burned up. The whole point I'm getting to here is it doesn't seem to matter which way you turn in life. Somebody has a solution to the problem they're creating, that you're the object of it, and it's going to cost you money. Is that clear? Not just a little bit, like a dime phone call or a 10-cent cup of coffee where you can sit over it and talk over it. Now it's got to be 60 cents, and the minimum order is $1.50 at the table. So it's a $1.50 cup of coffee, and refills are 60 cents, but $1.50 at the table, minimum charges. So you can't even sit down over a cup of coffee and discuss the thing philosophically because they're going to be in your pocket after the money. So then it's ridiculous to go outside because if the bomb comes down, you've had it. I think that's why we see more and more pale people these days. Not because there's not sun, it's just they're not going to chance it. There's a conservativeness that seems to run through us when it comes to life and death, or the prospect of living and dying. I'm a little on the conservative side myself. I figure, why mess with it? If it comes in, it comes in. But there's no need to go out and wave a flag and say, here I am. However, the whole idea of being a captive and being captivated by something is more important to us as individuals. And I didn't forget about the idea of nuclear radiation. I'm coming back to that at the end, but if I talk about that first, this other part won't make sense. So like most things in life, you have to go to the end before you can get to the beginning that explains the end. So it isn't supposed to make sense just now, but it will a little bit later on. If it makes any sense at all, it will later on. Well, I don't necessarily care to do these types of seminars, so I just figure I'm going to have some fun while I'm doing them. And if you're not, you should have some fun, because that may be all you're going to have tonight. So I have fun. Most people in the midst of it say, it's amazing, I got something out of that. I say, that is amazing, because there was nothing in it. This is one of those non-planned evenings that is going to spontaneously come to a highlight and a conclusion in about 45 more minutes, thereabouts. As I told you in the beginning, it's a very short subject that has to be stretched out. I am demonstrating that that is so. There's no need to lie to you. You'll know the truth shortly anyway. When we come to this whole process of captive and who's got us and who's keeping us and who's not letting us go, we can look most readily at the family and at the people we love, or we say that we're devoted to, or to some form of study or behavior or group we belong to. We often say, I can't leave my job because if I do, I don't know what will happen to me. As a matter of fact, you do know what will happen to you. You'll be out of a job. I know that, but I don't know what will happen when I'm out of the job. there comes some real key type of questions. What is it that bothers you that makes you stay where you are when you feel a captive about that? The thing that bothers me is I don't know how much it's going to cost me to get out of this. I divorced my wife, my husband, my spouse, but I can't afford to, because it'll take this and this and this and this and this and this to get out of it, and I don't want to do that. But do you want to get out of it? Yes. Why? Because it's killing me while I'm in it. Well, if it's killing you, you're going to be out of it before too long anyway. Yeah, but I don't mean that I'm dead, in the ground, but every day I wake up with this heartache. And I go to sleep with this heartache, and at nighttime I'm having a hard time, and my dreams are fraught with throttling somebody. And I can't get out of it, but you can. The ground zero effect goes like this. What is the price you're willing to pay to get out of the situation you're in? What is the price? Well, what will my neighbors think? You have to pay the price of what your neighbors think. What is that? Get out of it and see what they think. But what if they think something terrible? Then you have to be prepared for them to think something terrible. What if my wife takes me to court and gets the 2 houses? Then you have to be prepared to go to court and lose the 2 houses. What if she gets the kids? You have to be prepared to go to court and let her have the 2 kids. What if I have to pay for them till they're 18? You've got to be prepared to go to court and pay for them. I'm being wiped out. That's what happens at ground zero. Everything's wiped out. There is nothing there. God. Then ground zero from a bomb blast may not be so bad as the ground zero from my personal interactions in life and the prices I have to pay to get out of it. That's right. Well, I want to leave this group I'm with, but they'll think that if I leave, that I really didn't believe in it in the first place, but I really did believe them in the first place, but in the second place, I don't believe them. And they're now in the second place. What do? You dissolve your membership. Yeah, but then they'll blackball me and I won't be able to get in any other club in the area. Is that a price you're willing to pay to get out of that group? Yes. Then that is the ground zero point in which you start. It goes like this. If I didn't have any of the obligations around me that I feel suffocated and imprisoned by, if I didn't have any of them, no wife, no kids, no job, no money, no this, no that, what would I do? A lot of people sit back and they go, I would breathe a sigh of relief. Then you're really at ground zero point. You're at impact. Because you can get rid of them all if you have to. And by this, I don't mean killing or bombing or mayhem. I don't mean that. I mean the willingness to pay the price to get out of it. Take the car, take the house, take the money, take the real estate, take the kids, and I'll run. I have to get out of it. If I don't, I may do something that I really don't want to do that will imprison me and confine me worse, called a prison, than where I am right now, which is a terrible prison. But at least I can walk around. And most of us are in some sort of a prison anyway at times. The business has imprisoned us. You want to get out of the business? Oh, I'd love to get out of that so bad. What is the price you're willing to pay? Are you willing to just give over everything and walk away? No. Then you're not willing to get out of the business. Many years ago, I was teaching in public schools. And I was having what you'd call nightmares about being late for my classes. and running down the hallways that kept going longer and longer, that were clear full of tar and honey. And when I'd get to the door, I didn't have my key. And I'd wake up in a cold sweat at 4 o'clock in the morning and get up and go shower and get dressed so that I could get to school on time, which was 9 o'clock, which was 10 minutes down the road. It's quite obvious that I didn't like that or some aspect of that. And from September till December of the year that I was employed, every day I would sit and look at the price. What is the price you're going to have to pay? The more that I came willing inside of me to pay whatever price I had to pay, to be called names, to never have to work again, to go out and bum, live in the gutter, I decided I would pay it. It was amazing at the moment that I decided I would pay whatever the price was, even die. I would even die if I had to. That can be a pretty hard price, you know. It lifted, and I saw a way to get out of the work by December of that year. I didn't have to finish the rest of the year. The amazing thing of it is, I made them glad to see me go. Sad that I was going, but glad that I was taking advantage of my life with wonderful recommendations. And the recommendation that's most wonderful is, you can come back here and have a job anytime that you would like. And could we get you to substitute teach in any pinch? And I said, no. Why? Because in my mind, I had reached ground zero. Everything was obliterated. I had no more school, no more class, no more anything. I didn't even have courage. I said, I will start out as though and as if I do not know anyone, nor do I have any talent or ability. And I will see where I go from this point. Well, I had been doing spiritual counselings and seminars for quite a few years prior to that. So I figured, I'll just jump from the school teaching over into the spiritual teaching. Except after you've taught 10 years, you get a thing called salariitis. You all understand what that's like? Arthritis' brother and sister. You can't get along without it. And my life was based upon a figure on a piece of paper called a check. And that figure said what I could do in extension, but not what I could do in contraction. Because I could contract and feel as bad as I want to, and I still got the same money. I didn't like that. I really didn't like that. So I decided all of it goes as though I knew no one and they did not exist, and I had no girlfriends, no friends, no car, no house, no money. Just obliterated. It was amazing how good I started to feel. I mean, and some of the people who were part of that are still alive in my life, but not as captives nor as slaves, but as people that are co-workers that I love to be with. I don't have to be with them. And I decided that everybody that I worked with would come into the ground point zero and see if they could survive the blast. If they could survive the blast, they would become free. I never have asked them to do anything as drastic as I did. I wouldn't expect them to. Maybe they don't have that inside. But I came to the point where you get so sick and tired of being sick and tired of doing something that somebody else says you got to do all the time, that I said, I don't care if there's anybody around to tell me anything. Was I prepared to be the only person left on the planet? I had reached that point. Crawl up in the ground. I was going to go back in the Himalayas and meditate in a cave, but I didn't have the airfare. And I couldn't take the high altitude anyway. I'd get sick and throw up and have headaches and had to go find a doctor. So I decided that doctors wouldn't be part of ground zero. I would put them out 30 miles away from the epicenter of this explosion I was going to produce. And then if something happened, I could seek help. As a matter of fact, though, all of them went down. Everybody and everything. But the people that were important in terms of the spiritual energy fields and what I was to be doing spiritually didn't even get shook up by the blast. Their comments were, now you'll have more time to devote to the spiritual work and this energy that's coming through you. And I thought, did I just get captivated again? Am I captive again to these do-gooders who want me to do good for them? And I had to think about that quite a while. And after 3 years, well, I do think quite a while. Before I tell anybody anything that I know is so, I've checked it out and watched it for a long, long period of time. A long period of time. Then when I tell them, this is so, it is. And I say, and here are the variables, the are. And the person then gets to sit in freedom with the information that I give them to either use it or not use it according to how they want to pay the price for their freedom and how much they're willing to pay. One fellow that I worked with was so captured by his own personal family, wife and children, that he was becoming very old and very desperate and was stepping out on the wife because he was becoming impotent with her and thought that was so, but just needed something different. Because he had completely captivated, shut himself down and said, and I won't give to this family who I am. And pulled everything back inside and just locked it in. Did it hurt the family? Somewhat. Did it hurt him? It was devastating. Ulcers, back, chest, throat, head, eyes. They started going. And then he came to me. He said, is it spiritually clear if I kill myself? And I said, no. I said, you're talking about dying physically and leaving the body and they bury it? And he said, yes. And I said, no. He said, what is the next step? I said, the next step is to change your attitude. He said, I keep changing the attitude and it changes back. And I change it and it changes back. I said, well, it looks to me like you have to get in an environment where you can hold your attitude to one spot and keep it there. And go with that flow of energy. He said, how can I where I'm at? I said, well, if none of that existed that's confined you, could you do it? He said, yes. I said, well, what would you do? He said, oh, that's easy. And I got my pencil and paper ready. And he started running them off. And I said, slow down. And I was just writing out his next 10 years. I said, why can't you do this? My wife isn't for it. My kids are on my wife's side. My present boss wouldn't give me the money to do it. I said, wait a minute. How about getting a different job that makes more money? What? I said, real estate. He said, real estate? I said, sure. Either that or wait on tables. He said, why tables? I said, every day, at the end of it, you'll have money in your pocket. Won't be a lot, but you'll have money in your pocket. He said, no, I want more than money in my pocket. I said, real estate? He said, yeah. He said, how about car selling? I said, yeah. I said, do you feel good about car selling? He said, no, I hate car salesmen. I said, oh, how about real estate? He said, I don't get it. And I said, all you got to do is make one sale worth $50,000 to you after taxes, and you got a good income. He says, that's more than I make now. That's all he needs, one. And he thought about that for a few minutes. He said, then I'd have to go to school. I said, yes, real estate school. I have to get somebody to sponsor me. I said, yeah. I said, are you willing to pay the price to get rid of as much as you're willing to pay the price to get? He said, no, I was willing to pay the price to get rid of, but I don't know about that. He said, why do I have to pay a price to get? I said, because you're paying for the information that other people have in books, and they want the money for their information, and you have to pay to get that. He said, well, that's reasonable. I said, are you willing to pay? And he said, how much? I said, oh, figure $5,000 or less. It was much less. He went to one of those quickie real estate schools, but he was quick in the mind, so he got their quickie course plus everything else. And he started off into it, and he just disregarded the wife and the kids and everything and went out and made lots of money first year, called beginner's luck. And he came back to me, he says, I made all this money. My kids are happy, my wife is happy, I'm happy, but I was told the first year is beginner's luck. That means next year I won't make it. I said, no, wait just a minute. Why don't you just keep in your first year all the time? He goes, well, you can't do that because after the first year, you get in the second year. I said, no, you don't have to. Why don't you just stay in beginner's luck all the time? He said, why? I said, well, the first year you sold a lot of things, you didn't know what you were doing. He says, yeah, I was really lucky. I said, why don't you just keep that going into the second year? He said, well, can I? And I said, yes, it's fine with me. I said, who is it not fine with? He says, my wife and my kids. They all said this is beginner's luck and I can't do it next year. I said, well, can you? He said, well, no, of course not. I'll be out of my beginner's luck. I said, well, what do you need then the second year? He says, I got to be real professional. I said, then move from beginner's luck to professionalism. He said, well, I don't have enough courses or enough this or enough that. And I said, study. He said, pay more money? I said, you got more money. It won't cost anything. Are you willing to pay the price to get what it is you have to have? He says, I can't just stay with beginner's luck. I said, yes, you can. You can. A lot of people are enthusiastic and just go out and sell off the enthusiasm called beginner's luck. And you can do that year after year after year after year after year. But one day you're going to think you know what it's doing, and you're going to start scheming and conniving and mess up deal after deal after deal after deal, because now people won't be buying you because of the enthusiasm. They'll be watching what you're doing because they'll feel you manipulating them. He was really at a loss. I said, by the way, why didn't you get rid of the family and the children based upon original plan? He said, once I looked at that, I realized that I could just do that and not get rid of them. He says, it was a real pleasure getting rid of them. I said, wait a minute, how's that? You didn't get rid of them. He says, no, in my mind, I just said, if I didn't have a wife and kids, I could go do this, and I would have this freedom to go do it this way. He said, and I just went and did it that way. I just went and did it that way. I said, what did the family think? He said, they weren't around. They were all obliterated. So I just blasted them out of existence, and I just went for it. I said, did anybody get hurt? He said, my wife complained a little bit, but on the first paycheck, she was happier. So what about the kids? I said, they both got new cars. They were happy with it. I said, well, where's the unhappiness? He said, I still feel captive inside of me, a prisoner. I said, oh, so you know that the ground zero effect works if you're willing to just obliterate everything as though that didn't exist. And where would I go now if I didn't have a wife and a kid and 20 years on the job and owing $4,000 here and $20,000 here, and that all just disappeared? What would I do? Well, I'd jump up and click my heels first. Well, why don't you just start right out and do that? See if you got the energy to click your heels. You might fall on your watch and maybe you can't do that. So it's very important to have a willingness to forge ahead where no one else dares go. Do you have to leave the family out? No, you don't have to. Do you have to be willing to? Yes. Do you also have to be willing to take the family if they want to go? Absolutely. But first of all, you got to want that change as much as you got to have that next breath. And if you got to hold your breath, it'll force itself on you. There is no failure in that. I have not met one person that has followed this procedure and have not turned it to a greater advantage for everyone. One person got divorced, and had to pay so much alimony and child support. And without this hindrance that he called it, his ball and chain and baggage and tinker toys, that was the wife, the mother-in-law, and the children. That was his definition, not mine. He just walked away free and earned more money and gave them all much more money back, which is what they wanted and she wanted, and has supplied them over the years with things he could never have supplied, being the father, the son-in-law, and the husband to those people. He couldn't supply it. And he felt miserable and worthless to think that all that was there and I can't supply it, and oh my God, I want it because I really do love them and they're my kids, but they're killing me. And he got free. Well, what's interesting is he sees the kids as much as he ever did. The wife and he cohabitate, not in the same apartment, they have different locations. He said, actually, we have more sex now than we ever did when we were married, about as much as we did before we got married, which is, he says, was really nice. And after we got married, just shut right down. He says, it's real difficult to understand what happens. I said, yes, the mind is a great guardian of the prison that you're in and all the inmates you bring around you. I'm going, God, that's phenomenal. I do all of that to me? Who else does it? Well, my wife did. She couldn't if you didn't let her. You got rid of her, which means she didn't do it. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I gave it all to them and they just beat me back with it, didn't they? Yep. But if I didn't make them stop, it wouldn't show that I loved them. You left them. Yeah, so I didn't love them. No. It may have taken a lot more love for you to go get the things that you wanted to get for you and for them than to stay in the pits of despair and profess loving in despair. Now, what we're drawing here is a real fine line, isn't it? It's like, well, this part of debarkation, what is it? Each person has to decide that for themselves, depending upon your circumstances, what you're in, and the price you're willing to pay to get out of it. What I was willing to get out of, there was no price that I would not pay. I mean, I couldn't pay any money, but that money has never been an object with me. My integrity, I was willing to pay my integrity to get out of it. To me, that's my breath. I wasn't willing to denounce my spiritual life because that's me. I wasn't willing to cut my heart out because that's me. I wasn't really willing to hurt me in terms of fix me so I couldn't be new and fresh for a new opportunity. Wasn't willing to do that. But I was willing to get rid of everything else that was in my way by walking away from it. Running, escaping, it didn't matter how. Tunneling, flying, I didn't care. It was ground zero time. They would not be around. Well, what happened after ground zero time? I didn't have all the worries and the concerns. I didn't have to meet the deadlines of other people. I became my own man, which was really fun because I always was that. But now I felt it, and I knew it, and I thought it. And my thinking was not dependent upon somebody agreeing with it. I felt new and clear inside of me about my direction. I felt real nuclear. I was ready to go out there and explode with the dynamics that had started coming present inside of me as a spiritual being. And it's amazing how that started radiating out. I was clear full of nuclear radiation from ground point zero. And I just started walking down the streets, and people come up and say, "Who are you? What do you do?" I say, "Not much, and I'm just me. Could you come and talk to our group? If I feel like it." When will you know that? When I feel like it. Can we give you a phone number? If you feel like it, come and talk. You don't know who I am or what I'll talk about. No, I don't know who you are and what you'll talk about, but I know what you're radiating. I can feel the radiation coming off you. I don't know what it is, but it's there. You have a simple freedom with you. You have a simple clarity with you. I said, what I talk about is simple freedom and simple clarity. Can you tell our group how to get that? Yes. Will you come and tell us? Are you willing to pay the price? How much is it? I don't know. I haven't got a fee. Can we just give you what we want? Yes. What if it's just car expenses? That won't be enough. Why? I'll also want to eat. How much? Hamburger. Fries? No, just hamburger, water. First group I talked to, they got through and they said, here's a check for $500. I thought it was $5. I looked at it, it's fine. This is $500. I thought, gee, I wish we would have taped that. They did. I said, could I have a copy of the tape? And the person that asked me to speak said, are you willing to pay the price? I said, no. They said, why are you not willing to pay the price? I said, because the place that gave me that information before can give it to me again in a better, more efficient, higher vibratory rate than which I gave it to you, and your tape will be worthless the next time I speak. I said, well, in that case, I'll just give you the copy. They handed it to me. I said, thank you very much. That's part of the fee of speaking. That was a long, long time ago. Needless to say, the tape, someplace is in our tape files, someplace in some file that we have tapes. I asked somebody if they could please get the first one that I got, and they said, we sure will, but they can't find out which one it is because nobody dated the box. Now, if you saw our tape file library, there are thousands of tapes that somebody's got to listen to. Not me. So they said, how are we going to get these tapes listened to? I said, I don't know. But if I can have this new clear radiation going out of me, it will find those people that are also in this new clear radiation, and we'll link up together and we'll radiate a new clear way of doing things. And when they start asking for more information, we'll start then developing the tapes, and we'll put the tapes out. And that way we'll find out what's on all those tapes. That's very practical business. Somebody said, I didn't know you were such a good businessman. I said, I'm not. I'm not known for my business expertise. I'm known for my new clear radiation and how to get out of the ground point zero fallout. And how to show others they can get out of it. And it's not easy, but it's simple. Well, why isn't it easy? Because all the things that have kept you in bondage today are all the things that keep you in bondage, and you have to deal with them, and they hurt now, and they're going to hurt when you deal with them, and you may not have the courage, the strength, the conviction to do that. Well, I'm married, and I have this new girlfriend, but I'm not really with my wife, but I'm not really divorced yet, but I got this new girlfriend, but I kind of really would like to be with my wife, but I don't know what to do with my new girlfriend. And what do you want to do? Well, what I want to do is like if I'd never met her, everything had been okay. So never meet her. What do you mean? I already have met her. I know. You're going to have to say, honey, I never met you. Goodbye. But that'll hurt her feelings. Yes, I know. Well, I don't know if I could take that. That may be the price you may have to pay, taking her having hurt feelings, for you to have joy and to bring it to somebody else that wants the joy, to produce it for those others who are coming and who are connected. God, do I have the strength to do that? If you don't, there's no way you can see the face of God, because you must see the face of suffering and joy and despair and heartache right here in this world. and be able to step forward, not in it, through it. And my God, the most difficult thing is for you to have pain, illness, disease in your body, and you go to a doctor who's going to help you, and he knows full well that when he lines things up in your body for health, you may have things a lot worse before they get a lot better. And he has to pay the price of your moaning, groaning, complaining, calling him all sorts of names before you start to get well. And then you get to humble yourself and feel bad that you called him names. He has to pay the price of your stupidity and your ignorance regarding how you got sick, and your stupidity and your ignorance about how you're going to get well. And the price he's going to pay is temporary disturbance of his professional name. And then when you get well, to watch you turn coat and say, what a wonderful, fantastic man. But very few people go out and say, look, I went to this doctor who lined me up and got me on the road to better health, but they didn't tell me I was going to go through a healing crisis, that it might get a little bit worse before it gets better. But what I thought was getting worse is 20 years of it, and it was over in 24 hours, but I didn't know that. And so I stopped all the treatments and medications and all the processing, and I'm back in it as worse as I was before, and the guy's a fraud. What is the price he has to pay to be the professional? He has to pay the price that that stupid patient who stupidly got sick and stupidly came to him, which might have been one of the smartest things they could do, is going to ruin his reputation out of their stupidity, and he has to be prepared to pay that price if he's going to be in the healing profession. God, isn't that a lot to have your job reputation hanging on a thingamabob's idea about what's right and wrong, and they're the one that got sick and don't know how to get well? They knew enough to create disease, but don't know enough to create health, but they know enough to create disturbance about that person who attempted to help them. Are you willing to pay the price? Of course, when the person gets well and they're happy, they have a new, clear radiation going out of them. People come up and say, you look so good. What have you been doing? They say, I met this most wonderful, marvelous healer, this doctor who can do these tremendous things for you. But you have to be prepared to get worse before you get better, and the person says it won't go. They're not willing to pay the price that they may have to get worse before they get better. If you're not willing to pay that price, then go have your sickness, because that's what you've earned. I remember once I went to a guy who does manipulation of the body. And I was having high blood pressure and some dizziness with it. And it was pretty high, and I was pretty young, but I was pretty tense. And that's when I decided I was going to blow the whole thing up, because either that or I was going to blow up with hypertension. I didn't feel like going that way. And I went to him and I said, I don't know what's bothering me, but something's bothering me. He said, you've been having strange dreams? I said, yeah. He said, how strange are they? I said, they're tension dreams about not making my classes on time, and they vary, but they're always, I'm late, and I can't find the key when I get there. And I really feel bad to think that I'm such a good person, such a good teacher, and now all the kids think I'm bad, and the principal thinks I'm bad, and everybody thinks I'm bad because I didn't get there on time. He said, do you ever stop to think that you are bad? I said, yeah, I stopped to think about that, and I found out a few things that I was bad about, and I've corrected those. He said, good, that's a good dream for you. That's a good dream for you. I looked at him for a few minutes, and I thought, I think I came to the right doctor. He didn't try to make me feel good. He didn't try to make me feel bad. He was just seeing what I was getting out of it, how I was going to use it. Then he says, I'll take you on as a patient. And I said, well, what's the big deal about you taking me on as a patient? I'm going to pay. He says, well, you see, I'm pretty old now, and I don't have to take everybody that comes in off the street. In fact, I've got a lot of money. And I'm only taking those people that are really interested in helping themselves. I've got rid of all those that didn't want to be helped, that just kept coming in here and moaning and complaining and groaning and never doing anything about what I tell them. He said, and those that did got well of the same diseases as those that wouldn't. So he said, some people out there think I'm a real saint, and others think I'm a real devil. He said, now those that think I'm a devil have had me investigated by all the branches of medicine and government, and they all think I'm okay. He said, but since that happened, I decided that I'd screen my patients. Not just take everyone that came in. I'll screen them. And I looked at this guy, and I thought, you are just as wacko as the day is long. That's why I want to be with you. Because everybody else says, take these 2 pills, call me tomorrow. In fact, some of them said, take these pills and call me in 3 weeks, but you're not supposed to take the pills longer than 3 days until they take your blood. So in 3 weeks, they wouldn't have any blood. I looked at those pills and I said, you know, this is interesting. This is an interesting pill. I mean, it's supposed to lower my blood pressure, but what you're doing is you're destroying the hell out of me. I didn't mind the hell going. I just want something worthwhile to go to heaven with. Finally, after the second visit, he says, this is going to cost you a lot of money. I said, well, without health, what good's the money? He says, no, it's not going to cost you that much money. I said, well, what's it going to cost me? He says, well, in dollars, it's going to be $15 a visit. In time, it's going to be twice a week. And what you do with what I tell you from those twice a week, it's going to take you 10 or 15 hours every day from now on. And I looked at that. Am I willing to pay that price? I said, if I don't, he said, first of all, I won't take you as a patient. He said, second of all, I wouldn't sell you insurance for longer than a year. I said, is it real serious? He said, no, it's not real serious, but it will get serious. I said, well, can we wait until it starts getting serious before I start? And he says, I don't think I want you as a patient. I said, well, wait a minute. I'm here, which means I am serious, though I'm kind of flippant with my mouth. He says, we'll dispense with that real fast. And I thought, well, I'm paying you. I ought to be able to say a few things. It's like, no, you don't. You're paying me to shut up and listen and come here and do what I tell you to do and do it. That's what you're paying me for. I didn't like the relationship, by the way. But in about 3 weeks, he laid it down. He says, 21 days, you know, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. He says, just rest that day. Drink a lot of water. Then come on back in the next day. He said, and I'll have my nurse set up an appointment for you. I thought, what are you doing, programming for illness in 21 days? I don't need that. So I followed his advice, his regime. I mean, it was a regime. He was emperor. I was serf. Not surfer who surfs the waves. A knave, a vassal. And I followed it. And sure enough, boy, 21 days, the sweats, the throws up, the everything is like, oh, boy, I'm telling you, if I get through this, I'll be healthy just to get through this. As a matter of fact, that was true. But it wasn't as true as it was obviously true as I was moaning and groaning and complaining, and I never called him a name. To my good credit, I never called him a name. I did call his method questionable. I did not use that word. I had them in shorter and 4 or 5 letters. But I went in to see him in the afternoon of the next day, and he checked my blood pressure. He said, "Bah, you got the blood pressure of about an 18-year-old. I said, "Wow, that's pretty good. What's the blood pressure of an 18-year-old supposed to be?" Because I mean, if somebody says you got the blood pressure of an 18-year-old, maybe the kid's fat and suffering from hypertension. You don't know what that means. So I want a little more information. He says, "Here, I'll teach you how to take your own blood pressure." So I did it. And, messed it up 2 or 3 times. He says, you're pretty stupid, aren't you? I said, well, you know, it's my blood, it's my pressure. I guess I have a right to be stupid with it. He says, you do. Showed me again. I caught it real fast. It's amazing what you can learn when you're stupid. If I knew what was going on, I'd keep doing the same wrong thing, the same wrong way, getting the same wrong readings, because I'm smart and know-it-all. But when I said, hey, I'm stupid, that's right, and I saw that he had the cuff fixed a different way than I did. Sneaky guy, I didn't see him do that. Well, he had me looking at the picture on the wall. He put the thing on there, and I didn't catch it. So I put on what I thought it looked like and what it felt like, and that's wrong often. It's got to be right regardless of what it looks like and feels like. It's got to be right. And it came out real good, and I said, gee, that's a nice reference point. He said, the way you got to do this now, you can't let those things block you, box you in, that make you sit and think about how you're going to get out of it without getting out of it. You can't think about getting out of it without getting out of it. I thought, geez, this guy's really a stringent old dude. I mean, he's about 75. Didn't look it. Had the most beautiful gray hair, trim build, walked faster than I could, did some push-ups to show me how good health he was in. I'd do some push-ups and go, he says, you have a good heart, it's just not working too well. It doesn't recover fast enough. That's okay, I'd heard that story before. I still heard that story in South America, so it wasn't anything new. But what it is telling me is I'm not getting that part in line, which I'm going to do. It's not enough to know that I need more exercise to make my heart recover its energy faster. It's not enough to know that. It's only enough when I do that. Do you understand it? That way, the radiation comes clearer out of me. It's always new. The radiation from you will always be new when you're residing in a spiritual consciousness. And how you can tell, it has loving in it. It feels loving. It expresses itself in loving. And it can be seen by other people. People, you say, I can't believe you drove 150 miles out of your way, out of your own pocket money, to do this thing for me. Why did you do it? I said, well, it might surprise you. I said, would you surprise me? I said, yes, I love you. Immediately the defense comes up like, what are you after? So I'm after doing what I came to do, that I'm going to be leaving. That's what I'm after. And they said, fine, and I did it. And nothing, no bill, no innuendo, no inference, no like, gee, I sure drove a long 150 miles out of my way to meet you. None of that. One of, it's a beautiful day, it's been wonderful being with you, and I'd like to be excused now to go because I have other work to do. And the person said, can I fix you dinner? I said, yes. They said, could you spend the night here? Do you have to be the other place? I said, well, let me make a phone call. I said, it's long distance. They said, no, fine, fine. I said, I'll pay you for the call. They said, no, you won't. No, you won't. When next morning I went to leave, they said, that bedroom there, and I got out, they said, see above it, has your name above the door. It says, JR's bedroom. I said, anytime you're in this area, that's your bedroom. You get that bedroom. I said, oh, that's an awful lot for me just coming up here to do this, what I did for you. They said, what you did for me wasn't probably all that terrific, but the 150 miles that you drove to come around through all that was terrific because I've driven it. That was also part of the gift that I brought to them, was the out-of-the-way drive, the time that it would take to be with them out of a loving consciousness. Out of a loving consciousness. You might say, well, didn't that cost you a lot of money? Of course it costs a lot of money, but what's money for if you can't give it and share it? I mean, it's no good to have it stacked in your vault. It's no good unless you can share it with a lot of people to make more people happy, to lift their life. That sharing and that total loving is ground point zero, where you just share totally. And the nuclear radiation comes right out of you. That nuclear radiation can diffuse nuclear fission bombs and atomic waste pile dumps, because it is new, clear radiation. It's spirit all the time coming through and going out. That means we keep our thinking clear, we keep our emotions clear, we go in and keep the subconscious clear, and we check it periodically to make sure it's clear by free-form writing, by interphasing, by watching what we put in motion, watching the thoughts we have in our mind, and if we say we're going to do something, to be willing to pay the price, no matter what it is, to do it. And sometimes it's money, sometimes it's losing a friend, sometimes it's gaining a whole bunch of other responsibilities. If it's worth it to you, then you go for it. It may be worth it for you to get rid of something that's been chewing you up financially. You'll take a great loss. If it's worth for you to get out from under it, then that's the loss you're willing to take. You take it and you smile and you write it off and you walk away. You say, free. And that doesn't mean that you don't go into something else, because we're to continually keep progressing. New ventures, new gains. One thing to keep in mind, nuclear radiation results from a 0-point explosion when you're willing to sacrifice and pay the price to bring the newness to everybody. Berush Beshan.